Zoning Hearing Board meeting for April 21st, 2022 to order. If we could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so the first is appeal number 3077, the applicant Marquier Properties LLC, property located at 101 Highfield Road, request an extension of time for obtaining a permit under section 280-144 of the code for an additional 6 months to November 2nd, 2022. Is anyone here on that? Please. We should swear her in, correct?
I'm a retired counsel, so I will now address the party. I do. Stephanie McDonald, MACDONALD.
So what's going on with the property and the permits?
So apparently the prior owner, Marquier Properties, sold the property.
Right.
To Builder Direct Homes, who I represent as their realtor. Joe Kravitz is the owner, or actually his wife Margaret Kravitz is the Margaret Kravitz is the owner of Builder Direct Homes. So Marquier Properties got the extension, and now the owner is Builder Direct Homes, and they would like to request an additional 6-month extension of the variance.
Okay, so this was extended once before then.
I believe that it had to have been because Marquier had requested the extension because he was selling it. And as part of their agreement to settle the property, he had to request an extension.
Okay. Okay. So the correspondence that was sent to us, was the board indicated that the property was being marketed for sale?
It's under contract now.
Okay. So is the, I don't know how to phrase the question. Is the owner waiting to submit for plans pending a custom build, or are they going to pull plans?
So there is a custom build. There was the grading permit was issued, and the drawings are based on a 46 wide, on the variance of 46 width.
Okay. All right. Any questions from
And he
the board?
expects to do a pull a building permit within the early portion of this extension.
Any questions?
When does the current extension expire?
I believe they said May 2nd.
And did I understand you to say that the expectation is that the construction, the permits will be pulled early in the extension period?
Yes.
Is there really a need for a 6-month extension? Can you live with a shorter extension?
I'm not the builder. I assume so. As long
Well,
as
that's what.
Yeah.
Typically, we like to have people who are in a position to make that decision.
Right.
Before us.
He indicated, yeah, he's had his son's wedding. He indicated that it would be in the early portion of the extension. He would be pulling the building permit.
Anyone else? Comment, questions? I wasn't sure. You confirmed for me that it was already extended, so that's where the hesitancy's coming from. I think I'd be amenable to 90 days. Do I have to do this by motion?
Yes, yeah, you can ask for a motion.
Okay.
You can make a motion or ask for someone.
Okay, sure.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the applicant be granted an extension of the previous variance for a period not to exceed 90 days from May 2nd, 2022.
Is there a second? All in favor? Brad?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Jamie? Aye. I'm in favor as well, so
Okay.
90-day extension.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Appeal 3113, the applicant Radnor Rockwell LLC, property located at 1001 Eagle Road, folio number 360200978800, requests an extension of time for obtaining a permit under Section 280-144 of the Code for an additional 6 months. The current approval is set to expire on June 5th, 2022, and the applicant would like an extension to December 5th, 2022. Is anyone here for that?
I do. Rob Lambert, with Site Engineering Concepts, the engineer on the project. As you know, this is a larger project and takes time. We've been feverishly working on our land development application. We anticipate submitting our land development in the next couple of weeks. We've also been working on the initial stages of outside agency approvals, and we'll be proceeding through the land development process.
Okay. So you're proceeding, though, with...
Oh,
all due
absolutely.
speed. Okay. Again, by motion, guys? Yeah, okay. So is there any questions or discussion from the board? No? Okay. Anybody want to make a motion? I'll do it. I'd make a motion to approve this request. This is the first request, correct?
This is the first request, and to be candid, we will likely be back for another request. Just the land development process does take time.
Complexity of that project.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the request to extend the time through December 5th, 2022. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Brad?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Jamie? Aye. I'm in favor as well. So
All right. Thank you very much.
Good luck. Okay. Moving on to the next case. Appeal 3129, the applicant Miguel Pena, property located at 400 South Wayne Avenue, zoned R2 residential. The applicant is seeking relief from Section 280-112D and 280-112E of the code to remove the steep slopes to create usable space in the backyard.
Hi.
Good evening.
No, I'm the applicant. I do. Miguel Pena, P-E-N-A.
So I do understand there may be a request for party status from one of the neighbors. So if you don't mind, maybe we take that and at least have that taken care of before you present.
I didn't understand
Oh.
the comment.
Okay,
Can you
so
repeat that?
there's a request by one of the near neighbors to become a party in the appeal. And maybe we tackle that first before you present.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, sure. Mr. Gummer? Yep.
I do. Baron Gemmer, B-A-R-O-N-G-E-M-M-E-R.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yes,
So I understand you're requesting party status.
that's correct, yes.
Yeah, so if you could just tell us, on what basis
Okay.
you have party.
I live at 335 South Wayne Avenue, which the property is actually abut via the center line of South Wayne Avenue, and have actually been involved in this property for a number of years for other particular things.
Mr. Pena, you have the right to question him, or if you don't object to his admission as party, then it allows, yeah.
I'm curious what you feel is, what's the...
Well, I guess I'll get to that after.
He'll get to, right. It gives him the ability to question you as part of the case.
Mr. Chairman, just for point of clarification, make sure that everybody's speaking on a mic, so we can't speak from our
Oh,
seats.
Yeah.
thank you, sorry, yeah.
Thank you.
Here, why don't we hand this down then, just to make it easy? There you go, thanks, sorry.
Testing.
Okay, so without objection then, I would grant party status. Okay. Mr. Pena, you may proceed.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thanks for having me and my wife and our landscaper here tonight. I do have some slides that I'd like to present. I was told that I could do so by bringing a thumb drive.
Okay, we'll get our tech wizard. Here he comes.
You heard me say that, didn't you? He came right out.
Are these slides different from what was submitted with the application?
So I did not present slides with the application.
Well,
I was told
there was
that I-
photographs and things that were included in the packet.
Yes, and those will be included in the slides. There's some additional information in the slides that I've
Okay, so do you have paper copies of the additional,
of the slides?
of the slides?
No, I do not, but I can certainly, you know, deliver those fairly quickly.
Okay, that,
We need those.
yeah, we need those for the record.
I could even let you keep the thumb drive. Paper?
Paper.
Okay,
Yeah, so you'll have to submit those.
not a problem.
Yeah, is there a time period?
Actually, paper and electronic, everything should be submitted both.
Okay, and when do you want those by?
Within a week.
Within a week, okay.
Yeah, you'll have it tomorrow, or maybe even tonight before the end of the meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
The paper copy, one copy is fine?
I'll defer to you.
Well, we need at least 2 for the file. I don't know if the board's gonna need any.
Yeah,
It'll be after the fact, won't it? I mean, I think 2 for the file and.
2 for the
that's it.
file.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
thanks. And electronic.
Yeah, electronic, I can email or leave the thumb drive, or both, whatever you guys prefer. I'm just gonna rearrange this here real quick. Okay, so here to present tonight our stormwater management landscaping plan. We have quite a bit of detail to share with you, and I included some pictures, quite a few pictures of the house before and after, and also the project that's currently in progress. So these look a little bit dark, but you can kind of see our little diamond in the rough that we purchased back in January of 2021. We were fortunate to be able to acquire this property. My wife and I and our 4 kids lived right around the corner for the last 10 years. And I would always drive by this house and wonder what was going to happen with it. Not thinking at all, throughout the 10 years that, someday I would buy it and move in. But as life happens, we decided to sell our home, which we did on Luella. We lived at 314 Luella Avenue. We sold our home in December of 2020, and in January of 2021, we purchased this, and we moved to an apartment right down the street here at Radnor Preserve with our 4 kids, and we lived there for about 11 months while we embarked on a major renovation of this property.
I think that, well, to the extent that you're displaying, that's fine, but any of these slides that you want us to consider should be identified by an exhibit number so that the record is clean. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know how you want to handle that, because you're right, some of these pictures I did not see in the submission.
Excuse me?
Do you know how many you have in the packet?
In this presentation?
Yes. Yeah, that's what-
There's several, and I think you have probably, I don't know, maybe half of them.
Okay, how many slides are in the presentation you're going to make?
So 18 slides total.
Okay, so as we go through, Mr. Chairman, if I, go ahead. As we go through the presentation, if you are describing what is on the screen, you will need to begin by describing what slide number of the presentation you're looking at, because the official record of these proceedings is being taken by Norma and are in a written form, as opposed to the fact that, we can all run home and check YouTube when we're done to see how great we did. So unfortunately, as you go through the presentation, you're going to need to identify by slide number what slide you're talking about so that Norma can keep an accurate record of the proceedings. Thanks.
Understood, understood. That makes total sense.
Mr.
So-
Chairman, if I may, can we mark, so we'll mark the whole slide presentation as Exhibit A,
Sure.
and then refer to each slide as Exhibit A, slide
One,
number
slide 2.
1 or 2, et cetera.
That makes sense.
Understood.
If-
I got it. So then for the record, the pictures that I was just referencing or previously referencing are from Exhibit A, Slide 2. And I'm now moving to Exhibit A, Slide 3, where I'm showing some before pictures of the inside of the home when we purchased it. This is what it looked like. You could see the picture on the left, you could literally see, looking up the steps, you could see through the roof. Picture on the right was the one, at one point, was a beautiful kitchen. You could see the old appliances. I actually toyed with the idea of keeping the old range, which I thought was pretty cool and maybe worth some money, but we decided not to. We decided that was too much trouble, so we demoed and ripped everything out. Slide number 4 is the after picture. So this is a picture that I took literally yesterday of the house, the finished house, and this is from a different angle. To give you an idea that we made a major investment and a major improvement to this property, which sat abandoned for over 10 years. I don't know the exact amount of years, but certainly longer than our time in Radnor. We moved in 2011.
And Norma, let the record reflect that that discussion was about slide 5.
Thank you. So here's a site plan of the property, and this is slide number 6 for the record. House was built in 1948. The gross lot size is 1.33 acres. It's roughly about 57,945 square feet. As part of the original permit that we got to do the construction for this house, we were required by Shade Tree Commission to plant 15 trees. Along the way, we had to, we came back in to reapply for a permit for a change in the existing permit because we wanted to excavate underneath the addition. So we were building an addition, and after we got the permit to build that addition and do the construction on the house, we went back in to ask permission to be able to dig out the subsurface area underneath the addition to make the basement space bigger. Probably one of the best decisions we made. It cost us about 3 months in time for various reasons. You know, one of the meetings got canceled because of COVID, and then along the way, a letter from a neighbor, likely a neighbor who's in the room today, surfaced that the calculation on the number of trees that we had to plant.
Mr. Pena, I appreciate you have a presentation you want to go through, but there's a lot of people waiting tonight. So you have a specific request that just, if you could move along towards where you need to get us to.
I will.
Okay.
There's a story that needs to be told. There's a lot of context here, and I worry that if I don't give you the context, it's certainly going to inhibit your ability to make a decision or make the right decision. I think there's a lot of information here that I think needs to be understood, and I think once you understand it, and then you see the conclusion of the presentation, you'll be able to at least look at it from a practical and logical lens and understand why.
Unfortunately, our board is limited to the legal thresholds of a variance. So we'll give you some leadway for some of that context, but at the end of the day, we have to make a decision whether or not you meet the criteria for a variance.
Fair enough. I won't be long, I promise. So, a letter surfaced requiring us to plant 1 extra tree, so that number of 15 trees became 16. I gladly agreed to plant the extra tree. Cost us 3 months, but nonetheless, we made it here. This plan shows, the red outlines show you the lot lines. The green is the actual footprint of the house. And the shaded areas, which also include, it's like kind of a light gray and a dark gray, and then it also includes the red shaded or orange shaded area on the Conestoga side of the house, all are steep slopes. So the steep slopes on this property are almost 10,000 square feet, and the steep slopes that we have removed are about 300 square feet. And you're probably asking yourself, why did I remove steep slopes before I came to see you? So, and there's a story behind that too, which I think is also very important. So this is what our backyard or muddy yard looks like today. How did we get here? We got here because when we got the original grading permit to dig out the expanded basement, we were told that there was a couple of requirements we needed. One was we had to put up an orange construction fence, which you can actually see if you look closely on slide number 7. I'm on slide number 7 now. If you look closely on slide number 7, you could see the orange fence. I drew a red dotted line underneath it. And then I continued the red dotted line around the area of that encompassed where we dumped the soil. The soil that we excavated is where we dumped it, right? We dug it out and we dumped it in that area just inside of the orange fence. From day one, I was told that I am not allowed to touch anything on the outside of that orange fence, but anything on the inside of the orange fence is fair game. So we gladly dumped all the soil that we excavated on the inside of the orange fence. This is a picture of essentially looking at it from the opposite perspective. So you can see there,
Just keep
this is
the-
slide number 9 for the
Thank you.
record. You can see the orange fence kind of wraps around, and then you see all the soil that was excavated to create the expanded basement, and the new foundation wall was dumped on that area. On the inside of the orange fence, as we were told. Here's another picture, slide number 10, just a different perspective looking from the inside of the house, so you could see where the orange construction fence is placed. And then again, this is where we are today. The date, this is slide number 11. Sorry, I got to get not used to that. Slide number 11 shows 2 more pictures of different angles of the area that has been disturbed in the back, or the steep slopes that have been removed, to be precise. The day that our project was shut down, Steve Norsini came out and kindly explained to me kind of what the faux pas that I had made. And he said that basically we removed the steep slopes entirely, and I wasn't allowed to do that without a variance. So I said to Steve, Steve, I was told that I can remove any amount of dirt, including the dirt that I was permitted to excavate and dumped on the inside of the orange fence. I was told I can dig anything on the inside of the orange fence.
Is that what your grading permit said?
My grading permit said that we were allowed to, yes, allowed to excavate the basement or the area in the
But-
basement, dump the sand, and then remove that soil.
And just dig up anything inside the orange fence? The grading permit said that?
The orange fence is germane because I don't know if the
Just answer my question if
I
you
don't
would.
know that. I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you.
The orange fence is germane to how we got here, right? So
The grading permit's also germane, but we'll get to that too.
yeah, and I'm not suggesting that it's not. So
Mike, let me just stop you for a second. If the township, an official from the township, it is, yeah, there we go, sorry. If an official from the township told you you could do something, you have another argument here other than going for a variance by estoppel. So did an official from the township say you could do what you eventually did?
an official from the township.
And you're under oath, so let's be clear. Yep.
I understand. The answer is no.
Okay.
Because I didn't deal with an official from the township. I had a general contractor who built the house for me. The general contractor relayed to me the information that.
That's hearsay. And unless he's here under oath, that doesn't matter what he said.
Okay, that's fair. So, and look, I'm not here to.
You think he would say under oath that he was told by an official from the township that
And
he
we
could
will
do and do?
consider that with
No.
due
but
weight.
He can continue and try to get him as a witness. He can always do that, because it may be in your best
Absolutely not.
interest.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Because and just for clarity, my intention here tonight is not to point fingers at the township and say that
It's not.
because of
That's
this orange
not-
fence was
Yep.
in the wrong place. I'm just letting you know what happened because I think it's really, really important. So
Okay.
if I may continue.
Yes.
Right? So the township engineer says to me, Miguel, I hear you, but the steep slopes have already been removed. You need a variance. And for the record, that orange fence was installed in the wrong location. That's what he said to me, okay? And I said, Steve, that's unfortunate. I said, because this orange fence has been on this property for 11 months. And during those 11 months, the inspector came out, the township inspector came out multiple times, including two times they came out and shut us down. One time was because we installed tree protection and we needed tree protection around one more tree, which we gladly installed, and then we were allowed to resume. And then another time they came out because the third-party inspector noticed some damage to the orange fence. And that damage had basically, it was like a tree limb that came down from taking down a tree. It damaged part of the fence. It knocked part of the fence down. And we were told we could not continue to work until that part of the orange fence, which was about a 5-foot section, was repaired. We did that. We repaired that part of the orange fence, and we were then allowed again to resume construction and ultimately finish the project. So the point is, the fence was inspected by the township multiple times. We were shut down twice, one of which was actually because of the fence, and never once were we told that the fence was in the wrong location. Steve said that the fence should have been installed at the toe of the steep slopes, and it was not. It was installed at the heel, at the very top, clearly, and that's what we removed. So if I superimposed the fence and what we dug, you would see that the fence, we literally dug right up to that fence. Now that I got that out of the way, that's really important. I recognize that ignorance is not a line of defense here. And I'm not saying that I'm not claiming that that's the hardship. And I'm not blaming the township. Quite frankly, it's water on the bridge. What's done is done. All I'm saying is this was an honest mistake. And if you look at this through a very logical and practical lens, you could see that it really was an honest mistake. You know, this wasn't a resident gone rogue that just decided to remove steep slopes just because he felt like he could. It was an accident. If I would have known, we wouldn't be here, because if the fence was installed at the toe of the steep slope, I wouldn't be building a retaining wall, which is what I'm here to get a variance for. So now that I got that out of the way, and we all understand how we got here, I can go into the real reasons why I'm requesting a variance. The first one is rainwater and stormwater management. As you can see here, the picture on the left, and this is slide number 11 for the record, the picture on the left shows a perspective looking from the back of the house off to the side. You can see there's a puddle of water there. You can see there's not a lot of area there. You know, we disturbed roughly about 300 square feet of steep slope out of 10,000 square feet of steep slope, or less than 3% is what we're asking to get a variance for. And the water that accumulates here is quite substantial. You can see the picture on the right shows a giant puddle, and you can see the water starting to come to the house. It's important to note that before we dug out these steep slopes, all that water was basically hitting the house. It was hitting the foundation, the new foundation that we just spent a lot of money to build. So my goal in this project is to try to get the water as far away from the house as possible. So with proper grading toward the retaining wall, which we now need to build to stabilize this wall, the water can run to the wall and off to the side toward the corner, where there's plenty of land. The largest part of the lot is actually in the corner. So we can get the water to run that way, and it eventually will just get soaked up into the dirt, and everybody's good. I got a nice flat back area that's dry, and we have water that's running off into the right part of the property. Hardship number 2 is we had an Orkin professional come out, and they did a full analysis of our basement and crawl spaces. And long and short of it is, because I understand we're short for time, we have a moisture problem. I have the Orkin report here. I guess we can call this Exhibit B. I do have copies of this. And I don't know if you want me to hand them out now or.
Please.
Okay.
You want it?
No,
I'd actually like to hand out 2 exhibits, Exhibit B and Exhibit C.
Okay.
Exhibit B we should call, essentially it's a copy of all the emails between my contractor and the township representative and the township inspector approving the location of the orange fence. So I'll hand that out as Exhibit B.
Have one for Mr. Gemmer.
I don't, sorry. Exhibit C. You go, Baron. Yeah, I'll do C. Exhibit C is the Orkin report. The first page, the very first page of the Orkin report is an email from the Orkin professional stating in writing that we have a moisture problem in the basement. And then the subsequent pages are the actual report. These two pictures on this slide, slide number 12 for the record, are directly out of this report.
C.
That's C.
C.
Yeah, this is B and that's it. If you look on, the picture on the right is essentially just a footprint of the basement level and the crawl spaces. So every little blue and orange bubble shows pre-existing termite damage. There's no active termite damage, but clearly there was. And her recommendation is that we need to do some additional, install some additional vapor barriers, especially on the dirt crawl space floors. So when the water table rises, we would keep the moisture down. The moisture is what brings the termites back. So we will have more termite damage if we don't eliminate this moisture barrier. So it's a twofold problem. We want to try and get the water away from the house, and then we want to try and obviously protect the moisture from coming in the house when the water table rises. That's hardship number 2.
Mr. Pena, I'm sorry, is Rockwell Custom your builder?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Slide number 12, for the record, is just another revisiting the site plan. The only thing I wanted to highlight here is the third hardship. The third hardship is safety. We have 4 kids. There is no flat area on this entire property. The entire property is a giant hill. If you look closely, you can see kind of wavy dotted lines. All those represent, it's a topography plan, so they all represent slopes, right? The shaded areas are the steep slopes, but everything else is still considered a slope. So if my kids are playing soccer or throwing a lacrosse ball around the front or side of the yard, it's not if. The ball gets loose, it will absolutely roll into Wayne Avenue. So creating this flat area in the backyard would give us a nice, sizable, flat, enclosed, contained space that our kids can actually, enjoy kicking the ball around, hanging out, and I don't have to worry that they're going to chase a ball out onto Wayne Avenue and potentially get hit by a car. I would pay for 100 broken windows in the back of my house before I see one of my kids get hit by a car. Here's a picture of my 2 youngest boys out back throwing the lacrosse ball, and our dog Rosie. Can't forget her.
Slide 14, Norman.
Slide 14 for the record. And this is the solution. This is what we want to do in our backyard. I've actually already purchased the boulders. They're sitting in a giant pile on the side of our house. I already gotten fined once because the boulders were sitting underneath the drip line of a tree after a neighbor called. We gladly accepted that fine and moved the boulders the next day. But these boulders, I just want to highlight, Phil Giordano, who's with Giordano Real Estate, is in the audience. Phil actually did this project. These pictures are illustrative. It's of an existing project that Phil did with the same exact type of boulders from the same exact quarry. So when I hired Phil to do this project, I asked him to send me pictures of what this is going to look like, and this is what he sent me. I think they're beautiful, and clearly he's capable and qualified to do a really good job for us to make the back of the property beautiful, flat, and safe. This is slide 15 for the record. 2 illustrative pictures of what the project will ultimately look like when it's completed. So here's the summary. We walked through how we got here, right? The location of the orange fence is really important because it's important for me to let you guys know, or for you to know that this was really an accident. Had I known that those were steep, I didn't even know what steep slopes were when I started this project. Unfortunately, I do know what they are now. I know a lot more about the steep slopes ordinance in Radnor than I ever thought I would know. So good news is I know now. And these are the three hardships. Rainwater and stormwater management, which I know is a really hot topic, and it's really important to me, obviously. I do not want rainwater and stormwater running toward the foundation walls of our house. That's a problem. It's not if, it's when it's going to become a problem. Ultimately, it will, and it's going to cost a lot of money. So I need to get the water away from the house. Hardship number 2 is moisture control in the basement. You have the Orkin report in your hands. And hardship number 3, which is the one that's near and dear to my heart, and most important, is the safety of my kids. The house sits on a hill. The steep slopes were man-made. There's no doubt in my mind. Unfortunately, I can't prove that to you because the house was built in 1948 and grading permits were not required back then. If they were required back then, I would have that with me, and I could easily prove that the steep slopes were man-made.
Mr. Pena, are you a licensed engineer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
No, sir.
So your opinion that the slopes were man-made is coming from what source?
It's coming from common sense. The entire property sits on a hill. The only flat area on this entire property is the footprint of the house and the top of my driveway. Anybody that looks at this property, again, through a very practical and logical lens, will know that these steep slopes were man-made. Otherwise, the property would have just kind of went like this. Instead, it goes like this. Flat and then back down.
You mentioned during your presentation that the total square footage of steep slopes was in excess of about 10,000, right?
Roughly, just shy, 9,920.
And is that reflected in any of the exhibits, that specific number?
Yeah, it's actually in this plan.
Okay,
It's
and-
listed in the plan done by Cornerstone.
And is that the plan that was submitted with your
That's
application?
the plan that's submitted with the application. It was submitted with the landscape permit application, and it's also the plan that I shared up there.
Okay, and the amount of slope that, I'm going to use the word disturbed, but you're proposing to disturb is only about 300 square feet?
300 square feet of slope is what we already removed.
And is that reflected anywhere on any of the plans?
It is not. But it's in the presentation.
It is, do you know what slide it's in?
Yes.
Just so that the record's clear?
For the record, it is slide number 6.
Okay.
So gross lot square footage, 1.33 acres, 57,945 square feet. Steep slopes are 9,924 square feet, or 21%, and the slopes removed are 300 square feet, roughly 3%.
Okay. Have you given any consideration to stormwater management controls or systems? Or
Yeah,
are you
yes.
just going to try and handle it through grading?
Yeah, just through grading. Proper grading toward the boulder wall, and then off to the side of the house where it's just the corner property, so there's no other homes on that side.
Have you given any consideration to installing any sort of stormwater management system?
I didn't think it was necessary. I mean, we're not exceeding impervious coverage. And this last summary, which shows you the summary of the project, and again, I'm not an engineer, but if I'm not exceeding my impervious coverage, I shouldn't be required to install any stormwater management system, especially if I'm not creating a problem. I'm just moving water to the side.
Unfortunately, that's not the rule in Radnor Township.
Okay.
And I guess I have a question for Kevin. Is the area of steep slope that has been disturbed in addition to the area of disturbance that was identified in the grading permit?
I don't believe so. Ultimately, I think if this applicant is successful, he'd have to submit a revised grading permit application through the engineering department, which would look at the area of disturbance and calculate that all in there. Obviously, a boulder wall counts as impervious. We don't know what the total length of that wall would be because we haven't seen.
Well, I guess let me ask the question a different way.
That was in the application.
Let me ask a question in a different way. If the original grading permit had accurately reflected the disturbance of these steep slopes, then presumably the calculation that's done at the time to determine whether stormwater management is required would have also been done at that time, right?
Well, the stormwater management, from my understanding, is not based off of land area disturbance, it's based off of new impervious coverage.
Okay, all right. And to your point with respect to the wall, that's going to be new impervious coverage.
That would be new impervious coverage.
So
With
we-
the addition, could put them in a threshold for stormwater management.
Exactly. So to the extent that relief was granted this evening, I would expect that we would condition any grant of relief, make that subject to an amended grading permit that reflects that additional impervious, so that the appropriate determination with respect to the need for stormwater management can be conducted.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I would just like to say for the record that the length of the wall and the amount of impervious coverage that the wall would consume, the township does know. That was part of our original landscape application.
Sir, again, it's not in your grading permit. So please, the grading permit requirements are pretty specific. And if it's not in your grading permit, then the township's not in the position to do the calculation it needs to do to determine whether you need to do stormwater management.
I understand, and I'm not debating that with you. The gentleman over here just said that we don't know. He said we, which I presume is the township. He said we don't know the length of the wall, and we don't know what the impervious coverage is. And he said that on record. So now I'm clarifying for the record that he actually does know. Maybe he doesn't personally know, but the township does know the length of the wall and how much impervious coverage. And that's the next slide. This is the project summary.
Has that been filed with the township? Because for the township to know something, it needs to be in the file.
Yes, sir.
Was that filed?
It was filed when my landscaper filed an application, the landscaping application to build the wall. And then
And that was when?
that was in February. We got shut down February 23rd.
After the removal of the steep slopes?
No, before the removal of
Oh,
the steep slopes,
okay.
we filed an application.
Okay.
My landscaper filed an application, and this was the project summary. We have 100 square feet of remaining impervious total for the project. I knew that from building the house from our contractor. Mr. Norsini confirmed that. The planned boulder wall will be 90 square feet of impervious, so we're underneath that 100 square feet of allowable, under my impervious coverage. The minimum boulder height of the wall will be 2 feet, maximum will be 4 feet, and so all that information was submitted as part of the original application before the steep slopes were submitted. The difference is, nobody knew we were going to disturb steep slopes, right? So that's the crux of this whole issue. So now we need to take into account the 3 hardships and the fact that we have a wall that structurally needs to be, we need something to hold it up. It's continuously eroding. Since February 23rd, it's now continuously eroding every time it rains. So, that's the issue.
Okay,
Mr.
so,
Riley,
and that
just-
was slide 17, correct, for the record?
For the record, yes, that was slide 17, and that's the end of the presentation.
Okay.
So with that, I say
Exhibit
thank
or
you.
cross?
And
Yeah, okay, all right, sorry. Okay, Mr. Bremer?
Kevin had a question.
Oh, sorry.
Just for point of clarification, I think that a revised grading permit, if this board were to condition something, that it would be conditioned upon, if necessary, through the determination of the township engineer, a revised grading permit being submitted that would accurately represent the improvements that would be proposed.
Okay,
And then
great,
if
thanks.
stormwater is required, that's through the engineering process, and they will know what is submitted at that point in time.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Goff. The microphone's up there, right? Yeah.
Just 2 quick questions, one of which actually Kevin maybe answered. You talk about a permit being, oh, sorry. The permit application that was submitted in February, that was showing the steep slopes being disturbed and the retaining wall being installed?
well, to be clear, and Phil, maybe you can give a little bit more clarity on this. The permit application that we submitted in February was to build a landscaping wall. No one knew that we had steep slopes disturbed. No one knew, we didn't think we needed a grading permit, quite frankly, because I already had two. I had the first grading permit and then the second one after I had to plant the 16th tree. And so once I got the second grading permit, we all just thought we're allowed to take the soil that we excavated, we're allowed to remove it off site. I don't need a permit to do that. In doing so, I made the decision to basically flatten the area, to create this flat space. I didn't think I needed a grading permit for that. I was removing the soil that we already excavated and then creating a flat area so then I can build a retaining wall.
So you're saying that the application you submitted in February was solely for a retaining wall, didn't indicate any grading?
Correct.
Okay.
We submitted the site plan that I showed up there.
All right.
And with an outline of exactly where the wall is going to be built, how long it is. And that plan showed that we would be disturbing the steep slopes, but no one really figured out that it was, because we certainly didn't know they were steep slopes. My landscaper didn't know about the steep slopes ordinance in Radnor, and the township didn't say anything, because I guess they thought it was just going to be a retaining wall.
Okay. And that application is not part of the record not being submitted tonight, is that correct? You don't have?
I didn't know.
I assume the township doesn't have a copy, yeah. Okay.
Not tonight.
Yeah.
They certainly have a copy.
Okay. Second question, the slide you showed, and forgive me for forgetting the number, that showed 10,000 square feet of steep slopes.
Correct.
Can you bring that slide up? Because do you have anything that shows area by area of where that 10,000 is? Because as you said, if I'm, what's the total lot area again?
Here, let me pull up the other one that has all the stats on it.
Perhaps I can just give some clarity. In the application he submitted, there is a plot plan. It does show slopes from 15 to 20 and 20 plus.
I understand.
So
that.
it has all that calculations. It shows the difference between the two. The one thing I think you're about to go to is, just so you know, definition of steep slopes is 20 plus in our code. So the 10,000 isn't technically accurate. It's according to your plot plan, it is your 20% plus steep slopes are 3,652. If you add the less than 20%, which you're still calling steep slopes, but for our purposes, we only care about the definition that is in our zoning code, which is 20 plus. So you're disturbing 300 square feet out of a total of 3,632.
Okay,
So
so
just to
slightly
revise
less than
kind of
10%.
testimony. Yeah, because again.
That's fair.
Yeah,
That's
just
fair.
want to make sure we're clear on that. But it is in your plot, in your plan and in your application.
Can we, Mr. Chairman, we haven't marked, can we mark this plan as Exhibit D?
Yeah, is that what we're up to?
Yeah,
D?
that's D, yeah.
Sure.
This plan, the key says steep slopes, 14 to 20 degrees are considered steep slopes. And I read the ordinance, and I did read the ordinance, and perhaps I misread it, but I thought anything above 14% in Radnor is considered steep slope.
The requirement in Radnor is that it be shown on the plan, but the definition for purposes of what we're talking about here is 20.
Understood. So it is possible, and again, we'd have to, I didn't have pictures before we dumped all the excavated soil on top of the steep slopes. I didn't have pictures of it, but I'm pretty certain that the steep slopes that we disturbed, the 300 square feet, wasn't all 20% or more. Some of it was less than 20%. Because I remember it kind of went up, but it was semi-flat before it got kind of steeper and went up. So it's possible that it's less than 300 square feet. In the 300 square feet, I'm counting anything above 14 degrees, or 14%.
I'm not sure that is consistent with the steep slopes that are shown on
I may
D.
be getting to that, John, in my part of you. And just one more question on that, and then I'll be done. The calculation of that 300 square feet, which I think Mr. Riley's alluding to, who made that calculation? Is that shown with a CAD drawing that takes the area and creates that?
No, it's not. So, two people. Mr. Norsini, when he came out, the day we got shut down, he came out and he took some measurements. And then I went ahead and basically tried to confirm that those measurements were accurate, and so that was roughly about the calculation.
That's all I have until to my presentation. If-
So let me make sure I get your testimony right. So what you have on the drawing, the red and the disturbance of the 20-plus steep slopes, you don't know if that is 300 square feet. I'm carrying out that plan because if we give you a variance, we're going to say you can do what you can do in accordance with this drawing, and that's it. So if the drawing is wrong, you're in trouble.
Fair enough, but I just want to remind you that the steep slopes are gone. I'm not looking to excavate any more than what's already been excavated. So
That's a good point.
So if you want to, if you're telling me that if I do anything more than that, I'm in trouble, that's fine. I'm not doing any more digging. We're not excavating anymore. I
You've
just
already
wanna-
dug, yeah.
They're already gone. I just want to get the boulders up.
Yeah.
I want to solve this problem.
So just so I get, if you were to get this, you're almost behind the retaining wall, you're actually building back the steep slopes.
We're
You're gonna
building-
have to.
We basically just removed the steep slope, so now it's flat. Well, it's starting to erode. And then the boulders are gonna be placed up against the flat area, the eroding area, to basically make it structurally sound.
Well,
So-
I guess and again, this may not be relevant, but in my brain it is. Because when I'm looking, it would have been really cool if you guys would have had a plot plan of what you have today. What did you dig out? How far did you go? And then to say, and this is what we want to do.
We went right up to the orange construction fence.
Yeah, but that doesn't help us for the plans.
Is that
So we
shown
don't
on the
know.
plot plan?
We don't know if,
I understand, but.
because technically, I know you're trying to say, I need a variance for 300 square feet of disturbance after you did 700 square feet of disturbance. And I'm kind of looking at Kevin going, if we grant, I don't know how we undo, because you disturbed it. So you technically did a variance for everything you disturbed, no matter what.
Correct. So that's the problem when you come with this type of request after the disturbance is done, and then.
See what he's saying? What he's saying is you shouldn't be coming, your request shouldn't be, well, this is what I'd like to do and how it should be when it's all done. The request should be, this is what I did. And I need a variance for everything that I did. And then we kind of go, okay, and then you can do whatever you want after that. Because if you've already disturbed 700 and we only give you a variance for 300, you already have 400 square feet of disturbed. Is that making sense?
It makes sense, but I feel like you're asking me to do exactly what I just did. I just sat up here for the first 20 minutes of this presentation. In fact, Mr. Weitzman actually rushed me along, and I said, this is really important. The first 20 minutes of the presentation is to explain to you exactly what I did.
I get what you did.
And why we got there. How we got there.
Mr. Pena, but we don't know what you did. How is this reflected on this plan? Because
It's
I
not.
don't know if your
It's not.
disturbed is back here, if it's up here, or whatever, because that's the variance that you're going after. Because the last thing we want to do is give you a variance, and he denies you again. And he's going to go, because you didn't get your big enough variance. Or we give you a variance, he sues you, takes you to court, and the court goes, you ain't getting it. So that's why we're trying to work with you to say, are you asking for the right thing at this point? To where when you leave here, and let's say you do have a variance, you can do whatever you want. Go do it.
So what do I need to do?
I don't know, we're trying to figure that out.
Do you need me to,
Yeah.
do you need me to have Cornerstone come back out and remeasure to prove to you that it's 300 square feet plus or
It's
minus?
really not our job to tell you what you need to do. My first reaction to that is, go get counsel who can help you through this. Because this is not a simple, gee, I made a mistake, what do you say, guys? Because that's not going to work, because you cannot show us on the plan what you did.
Well, I can show you.
No, well, you cannot show us, since you are not a licensed engineer
Mr.
in
Riley,
Pennsylvania.
Mr. Riley.
Let me finish. Since you're not a licensed engineer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
You're being very combative, and it's
No,
not,
I'm
it's not
just, I'm
necessary.
trying to help you understand the predicament
Your-
that we
your-
are
Your
in.
tone is not helpful. It is not helpful. It's not. I'm trying to do the right thing here. I've been trying to do the right thing since day one. I made a mistake. I'm coming to you hat in hand, saying, hey, guys, I made a terrible mistake. I'm really sorry about that. It was an honest mistake. I now need to solve this problem. And how can I do this? How can I get there?
But understand, Mr. Pena, we do this with a lot of people that come, that are not represented by council. We just help them get to, I think, the conclusion that you want us to get to. And we're trying to help you saying this, because ordinarily, what we're trying to help you do is get a record. If you have a record, he can't sue you. If he does sue you, the judge is going to say, sorry, you
He'll
lost.
probably sue me anyway.
Well, so
I'm
you
not-
need to
that's
have
the
an
least of my
ironclad-
worries right
so you
now.
need to have an ironclad
I need to get
thing.
this wall built, and I need to understand what I need to do.
I
do
get you,
that.
but also understand.
And telling me
that-
to hire counsel is not the right answer.
But again, we're also trying to guide you because the definition of a hardship is unfortunately not what you put on that board. From a real estate perspective, it is not. And so
Stormwater
oftentimes,
management and moisture control are not hardships?
Stormwater
Safety
management
for
is
my
not a har-
kids-
it's not a
Safety
hardship.
for my kids are not hardships? Are you serious?
Yes, and if you had counsel, they could explain that to you.
it is not, in terms of real estate law, it is not. It's just not, it's not how it works, especially if you were to go to the basic, which Mr. Caniglia could tell you all this stuff. But one of the things is you can't create the hardship, and you did that. And I know you did it by mistake, but that's one of the basic tenets, is you can't create your own hardship. And so we're just helping you to try to get there and say, I'd recommend getting another plat plan. That would be my preference. You can always continue this thing, and guess what? We'll be back here in May, and we'll hear it again. And again, because the other thing that I'm going to ask you, and I'm sure every single person here would ask you, is saying, is this the minimum relief that you need to make this property workable? I know this is where you'd like to have the retaining wall. That's not how we rule things. We only give relief on the minimum relief necessary to basically fix the hardship.
Yeah, and that's
You know,
fair
because
enough.
someone say, I'd love to have a 3-car garage. We're saying, help me understand why you need a 3-car garage. What a 1-car garage do? Sure, okay, so that's the minimum relief. So
Yeah, that's fair.
again, we're
That's
just.
fair, and quite frankly, that's all I'm asking. But just to be clear, and for the
I get it.
record, the hardship number 1 existed before the steep slopes were removed. Okay, that puddle of water that I showed you would not be sitting on that flat space. It would be running toward the house.
Yeah,
So,
but
so
your
is that not a
construction.
hardship?
Your construction guy
Or do I
probably
need
would have
Aspen to tell
said,
me
let's
that
do,
one too?
let's do some rainwater management. There's always ways to kind of conquer things. But if the thing is, if you are saying, look, the house isn't livable because of the steep slopes, then that's a hardship because you don't have a rightful use of your land. So that's different. So if you come to us with it saying, I can't live here because you got your hardship, in my mind, I'm not going to rule for the board. I'm just saying in my mind.
The sad part is that, I looked up the steep slopes ordinances, all the surrounding municipalities. And Radnor is the only township that has a steep slopes ordinance that says that the property owner can disturb 0.
0.
Everybody else can
Trust
do,
me.
in some cases, up to 30%.
Kevin will tell you,
It's
we hate
egregious.
these conversations because it happens all the time and they're going, it's ridiculous because a lot of times we will look at plans and we'll say, it was obviously man-made,
But
but
isn't
we have
it
no
your
record.
job to apply some level of reason
So,
to
so
situations?
when he asked you if he was an
that,
engineer.
It's not always black and white,
But
right?
when Mr. Nagel asked you if you were an engineer, if you were a civil engineer and you could say in my expert opinion, these were man-made, that has credibility with us. We can rely on that. So again, he was trying to kind of guide you to say, if you had a civil engineer,
Could never prove that, because the house was built in 1948.
but a civil engineer can use his experience and say, it is my expert opinion that it is. He can definitely do that. And it's on the record, and we can rely on that to say, okay, guess what? I don't think it's by nature. This was man-made. And that would be a reason for to grant a variance. So there are all ways to attack the same thing. We're just trying to guide you there. We're not trying to,
understand.
because the answer would be is if you say, Brad, I want to vote. I don't think you're going to be happy.
No, I
And we
understand.
want people to try to put their best foot forward before they get a vote.
I understand. Sounds like I need to hire counsel.
Yeah,
Or
it's up to
another
you.
professional that you guys can rely on, because you're certainly not
Yeah,
going to rely on my word.
that'd be great.
All right.
So what you would need to do is request a continuance?
Would I
Right
be able
now.
to put on part of mine before the continuance, just, which
You
help
might
him?
want to do that after he gets all of his ducks in order.
Well, how are we going to do this if we get the continuance? Is his case done, and then, or will I be able to speak again?
You'll
after
be able to
that?
speak again.
Right, so I just actually.
'Cause he hasn't actually rested.
I know, in deference to Mr. Pena, in deference to Mr. Pena, it actually might help him to see what I'm going to show, might actually direct him in terms of what he needs to do.
Well,
But I don't want to take your time.
Nothing stops you gentlemen from talking after this, civilly,
No, I understand.
obviously.
And I think
Which
it would
may
be-
actually help the
No,
situation.
no, and I have no problem with continuance. I was going to suggest that whether it's before or after mine.
And I
because
would
was-
suggest that you let him put his case in full, and then you come back and ask questions, because again,
Okay.
you're going to, maybe ask the same questions, maybe he answers all the
Yeah.
questions.
What I would ask, though, with the continuance is that any exhibits that are going to be brought to the next meeting be given to me.
Your
10
party
days, 2
status has
weeks
been
in-
granted, so
Yeah,
everything, anytime anything's filed at this point in this application, you do have to be copied on it.
But
Mr.
my
Pena,
question would
so-
be, is there going to be a deadline for submission for that so that he doesn't submit it 3 days before the meeting to the township?
Well, which is, most applications have something submitted the day of the, at the hearing.
Yeah, I know.
So I can't guarantee you're going to get everything ahead of time, but as much as possible, if you can obviously, both parties, if you have something to submit, it goes for you as well. You need to submit that to the township as well as to Mr. Pena, and likewise, Mr. Pena. The earliest you can get exchange of documents that you intend to present, obviously within reason of when you get it, exchange it between yourselves and the township.
Fair enough. So I'm assuming you're
So-
going to vote on the continuance.
Yeah, despite your frustration, do you want to request a continuance?
I do. I really don't have another option, do I?
No, Mr. Pena, there's one other detail with, Mr. Chairman, if I may. There's deadlines that the board has with respect to your application. This board typically will not grant a continuance request unless you're willing to waive the deadlines that the board has to deal with in terms of hearing the application within a certain period of time. So are you in agreement with waiving those deadlines?
Walk me through this again. So,
Under the municipal planning code in Pennsylvania, the board has to hear your hearing within 60 days of when you file the application, okay? So we've started the hearing, but there's other deadlines that relate to that as well. So because you're asking for a continuance, the board just wants your assurances that you're waiving any deadline requirements that the board may have with respect to your application.
I just want to know that I could get back in front of you at the next meeting.
Well, that I can't guarantee either, because it depends on the agenda in May. There may be too many hearings already in May. I have no idea, this board has no idea either. They can't tell you.
But aren't you required with a continuance to hear me out at the next board meeting, or is this what you're asking me to waive?
That's what I'm asking you to waive.
Yeah, without the waiver, we would have to vote tonight because of that time limitation.
Okay.
Kevin, do you know what's on the agenda for next month?
We have 5 or 6 appeals.
Is it possible that fills the,
That's what we have at this
Yeah,
point,
I
yes. And one of them is the one that's been continued for the last 2 or 3 months. 1106.
And Mr. Pena, it's your decision. I mean, we're not trying to talk you into one way or the
No,
other, but.
I understand. I'm just
yeah.
trying to understand what am I actually giving up here?
That's why it is highly recommended to your council. I understand how you feel about that, but it is a legal proceeding, and there's so many details that it's easy to trip over any one of those details.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, without the waiver, our hands are probably tied where we have to make a decision tonight.
Understood. Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, so you agree to,
Thanks for the explanation.
No, of course, I wish it was something else you were hearing. That's all.
so I just want to make sure the record's clear. So you agree to waive those time requirements?
I agree.
Okay.
And then before I go, I just want to know, I owe copies of the presentation that I shared tonight, 2 copies, right? Hard copies and then 1 electronic. Who do I send the electronic copy to?
Kevin.
Can I have your email address? Do you have a card?
Okay, thank you.
Not surprised.
Do you need to vote on the continuance? Have you voted on the continuance, or is that?
No, the continuance is granted or
So,
not objected.
all right, so-
Yeah, you don't object,
Nope.
correct?
No, actually, I think it's in his best interest, so I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Appeal number 3131, the applicant 147 Conestoga LLC, property located at 16 Doyle Road and zoned R5 residential. The applicant requests a variance or a de minimis variance from section 280-35A7 of the code or such other relief required under the zoning code consistent with the exhibits and testimony presented.
Good evening.
Evening, Nick Canoia, representing the applicant. Actually, you've seen this plan to some extent previously. It's the corner of Conestoga and Doyle Road. It was a two-lot subdivision. The relief you granted, though, actually was not for this lot. It was for the twin home. You remember there was a twin and then a lot next to it. And the relief that was granted, if I'm just referring to A4 here, here's the one side of the twin, and here's the lot. There was relief granted for this side, for this twin here, to make it the same size as the adjacent twin, which was not part of the development. The relief was granted for both lot size and lot width. You may recall there's a lot of testimony regarding the size of the lots in this area, which is zoned R5. We're now talking about the lot where if you've driven down Conestoga Road, you see a new home being constructed right before you get up to Lancaster Avenue. And the relief, what happened here is that the home was constructed, the garage was constructed. Colin will explain what occurred, but the grading permit showed that the separation was 10.5 feet. What happened is when the chimney was installed, you had a chimney that was like 1.83 feet. When that was installed, that narrowed that distance between the garage and the home to less than 10 feet. It narrowed it by 16 inches. So we're asking for relief basically for the 16 inches between the garage, the accessory structure, and the home. Interestingly, what occurred here, I believe, is that the engineer thought that the chimney did not count as part of the building when we're talking about the separation, because if you look at the Radnor code, chimneys are excluded from setbacks, but it's not excluded, to Kevin's analysis, from distances between accessory structure and the main structure. So we're basically asking for a variance here this evening for that 11-inch, or 16-inch, I should say, difference that we have here. We have, you'll see on the plan, it's 8.67 feet, which is 16 inches shorter than the 10-foot requirement. I'll call Colin up.
Nick, just to confirm, on the original permit that was approved, the chimney was not shown?
It was not.
The chimney was not.
Sorry, hold on.
Yeah.
I do. Colin Whalen, COLLINWHELAN.
Brad, the answer is yes, but I'll let Colin
Okay,
explain.
good. Okay.
Brad, can you ask your question one more time?
On the grading, or both any permits where structures were shown, was the chimney shown and the distance shown?
So the failure on my part was a coordination effort between design professionals where I did not show the chimney on the site plan, but I did show the chimney on the architecturals.
Oh,
So that's
okay.
our discrepancy. We didn't show the chimney on the site plan because there's no foundation. It's a cantilevered chimney. So that's why we didn't show it on the foundation drawing of the site plan.
Thank you.
I guess we're jumping all over the
Yeah,
place
right,
a bit,
yeah.
I'm sorry, but.
I'll try to go
I'm-
in order. Yeah.
I'm just curious if the garage.
But it's not a big, complicated. It's
No,
pretty
but if the
straightforward.
garage, if that chimney had been shown, and you had to move the garage 16 inches, whatever direction that is, to create the space necessary, would you have been impinged on the setback on that backside?
We would, or we would have, or we would have made the garage that much narrower.
Yeah, because,
Understood.
yeah, it's 3 feet, and it's right up, the
mean,
requirement there for an accessory structure in R5 is 3 feet, and that's where it's existing. So
I don't-
you would have had to have made the garage narrower.
16 inches narrower.
Right.
So we would have done a double garage door instead of two single 8-foot doors.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to.
retrospect.
I just wanted to get a
But
idea
it was
of the length.
completely a failure on my part to coordinate the two design professionals.
Yeah, Colin, let's just go real quickly. Where do you live? And
211 Poplar Avenue, Wayne, Pennsylvania.
like, you actually lived there your whole life.
We've lived there, I've lived in Wayne my entire life.
And actually, you should know better because you're on the design review board, aren't you?
That's correct. I'm a volunteer on the design review board.
But you did apply for a grading permit, and you admit that there was a foul-up.
That's correct.
On the coordination of the two. And as I explained, you would agree that basically it started out with 10.5 feet. The chimney was 1.83 feet, and basically we're asking for relief for 16 inches as a result of decreasing the distance between the home and the accessory structure.
Correct.
10 feet.
That's correct.
Okay. And we've marked as exhibits, A2 was the deed, and you have since acquired the property, and I believe it was in January of 2021.
January 3rd, 2021.
And then A3 is just the aerial. I believe the board may be familiar with it, but I'll just show the aerial. As we mentioned, it's Conestoga Road as you're going up toward Lancaster. Here. And there's A4 is the site plan that we've marked. A5 and A6 show the home and the garage, as does A7. A8 is a photograph, basically, of the garage, the accessory structure, and the home, again showing the distances, although I believe the distances on the engineer plan are accurate.
Yeah,
I don't know, these may be off by a couple
my
inches.
dimensions are off on the picture.
Yeah, okay. You actually have prepared A8. the
That's correct.
dimensions, But the
That's-
accurate ones are on A4.
That's
as we
correct.
Described, okay. And then A9 is just that zoning appeal for that twin on this lot that showed the difference.
Correct.
What's the significance of the chimney in this house?
So the chimney is erected. I have been working with Andy Pancoast on progression of the interiors of the project. We've had our framing inspection and our close-in inspection, but what we're not doing is closing in drywall on the back side of the house until a decision's on this. But the overall look of the rear of the house will be dramatically affected if we do have to remove the chimney, and then we'll also have to lose the fireplace in the living room of the home. So
Okay, so you wouldn't have a fireplace in the home,
that's correct.
and this area here is the living room?
That's correct.
I don't know, that's about all I really have, but there's, it's just it's a lot less complicated than the one you just
Yeah.
had.
Any questions?
The alternative would be to shrink the garage.
Now, the alternative would be to remove the chimney.
Okay,
Garage is going to remain because the garage is built.
right. Well, you could say the chimney's built, too.
The easier
you're
solution
making a
would
choice.
the easier solution would be to remove the chimney.
Thank you.
Nick, point me to the code where one is distinguished from the
Sure.
accessory structure, that,
Yeah.
because I was trying to find that, and I'm like, I don't see
Well,
where
if
that's.
you look at, and I did actually make a copy, and it's under the definition section. Right, we all know it's 10 feet, separation's 10 feet, we know that that's required. Under the definition section of the code, it talks about building, and there's a definition of building, and then building area. Interestingly, when it talks about building area, it also excludes the chimney. But when you describe a building, it doesn't say anything about excluding the chimney. And then when you go to the setback section, it says that when you're measuring a setback from a side yard or a rear yard, chimneys are not included. So I think that was the confusion on the part of the engineer, and actually I spoke to the engineer and had a little bit of a discussion with him as to, how it was interpreted, so.
No, that's it for me. No, I'm good.
Anyone else? Public comment? Seeing none. If you want to summarize, or Nick, however you want to.
Sure. Basically, we're asking for relief here for, as I mentioned, 16 inches. I believe it's de minimis. It's not having an effect on any neighbors, it's not detrimental to the neighborhood, it's interior to the lot. I don't know, not to go back into the reasoning behind the separation in the code, but it is in the code. So you have to interpret it based on that, based on the fact that the code written in 1965 included this determination that the accessory structures of the main home should be 10 feet apart. But again, I believe it's a de minimis type of relief, and certainly it does affect the home itself in that it would be a home without a chimney, which in today's world, homes just are not constructed without chimneys anymore.
Thanks. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the variance under Section 280, 35A7 of the code as shown on the drawings.
Second? Any discussion?
I'll give my brief. I mean, I certainly would not say it's de minimis because we're granting 16 inches or a foot and a half over 10 feet. So that's not de minimis in my mind. But I think the mitigating factors is that it's interior, first and foremost, meaning it's really only affecting the homeowner in the distance between the garage. And certainly I see where things can get confused in our code because it's not really, it's certainly inconsistent. So that should go to at least the homeowner in this particular case.
Anyone else? John?
Brad, I'd just ask a question that was asked in the last hearing. Hasn't the applicant created its own hardship?
Yes, I believe he has. Let someone overturn us on that one, but to me, it's, I think the overriding factor in my mind is, and I will say, inconsistency in the code. I think that's the issue for me. The fact that in the building area, it is not included, but in the building it is. I could see how someone, even us, could interpret it in a different way. That's, to me, the difference between the two.
Yeah, I agree. To me, that's the asterisk of the difference. So, okay. Anyone else? Jamie? No? I'll take a vote. Jamie?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
John?
Deny.
I'm in favor, so 3-1. Congratulations. Good luck with the project.
Thank you, Board.
Okay. Appeal number 3132, the applicant Scalpology LLC, care of Heidi Naguski, property located at 101 East Lancaster Avenue, AKA 101 North Wayne Avenue, and zoned WBOD, Wayne Business Overlay District. Section 280-53.10A2 of the WBOD does not permit any mix of uses on the same floor. Applicant requests a variance from Section 280-53.10A2 of the code, contends that the use should be treated as an office use or such other relief required under the zoning code consistent with the exhibits and testimony presented.
Thank you. I have a couple additional exhibits that I'll get to. I'll just hand them up now, and then we'll discuss them during the presentation. And they are A9, A10, and A11. As I said, they are additional exhibits to what you already have before you.
Thanks. Hey, Gus, I don't remember formally, in that last hearing, 3131, did we formally move the exhibits? We did not. Can I go back into that record? Yeah.
Can we open that last
Yeah,
hearing,
I'm
please?
sorry about that. I thought of it, and then it slipped my mind.
I would request the exhibits be made part of the record, please.
Thank you, without objection. Sorry about that. It's my first time.
Actually, This is interesting. I just think it's interesting facts on what is being done here. And again, what the WBOD states. The issue here is it's the building on the corner of North Wayne and Lancaster. I think you're probably all familiar with it. It's the one, I think it used to be the old Opera House, they used to call it, back years and years ago. So it's it would be on the north, that's right, northeast corner of Lancaster and North Wayne. The WBOD, and it's a three-story building, the WBOD in the code says on second and third floors of buildings in the WBOD, you're allowed certain uses. You're allowed an office use, you're allowed a retail use, and you're allowed residential use. But whatever use is allowed, it has to be the same use on each floor, which, from the sake of argument, I can see if you have residential, you don't want retail use on it or office use. In this instance, the third floor is all office. The question is what Heidi's going to be conducting here. Is it an office or is it something else? Also, I think you're looking at a question where she's renting 350 square feet. The third floor of this building is 2250. So it's a very small portion. It's like 2 rooms of this third floor of this over 2,000 square feet third floor, and she's renting 300 square feet of it. What she's performing here is a cosmetic type procedure called scalp micropigmentation. It's a mouthful to say. And she'll testify that she's the only employee. She meets the person, she talks to them, she does the procedure. She's the only one there that does the procedure. It's only by appointment. It's not a walk-in type business. It's not like a beautician or a barber shop where you can just walk in. It's only by appointment. And it has to be done in a sterile type atmosphere. It can't be done at a hairdresser's or something of that nature because it has to be done in a sterile atmosphere. And also she has certifications that show that she can do this type of procedure. And you'll see one of the exhibits there actually shows what the procedure is. But again, as I mentioned, the question is, in the WBOD, it does mention you can't have a mix of uses. Our argument is that this is in fact an office use, should be treated as an office use, and therefore should be permitted. And if not, then we would ask for the variance to permit it on the third floor. You'll look throughout the code. There's no definition of office in the code. There's no definition of personal service shop in the code. Interestingly, when you look at other provisions of the code, namely the CO, C1, C2, C3, it does say office or studio. So it treats a studio, which is kind of what this is, in the same vein of an office. It doesn't mention a personal service shop, which would be the next closest thing, such as a beautician, I believe, would be the only other possible use for this, that it would be considered under that category. So again, as I mentioned, our argument is that it is an office. If not, then we would ask for the variance. And Heidi, if you want to step up.
I do. Heidi Nagusky, H-E-I-D-I-N-A-G-U-S-K-I. N-A-G-U-S-K-I. Okay.
And you may want to hold it up to your mouth.
Okay.
I just on Heidi, but
Do I
yeah.
have to push it?
No, it's already
Okay.
on. It should be on. So
Okay.
just hold it. There you
Sorry.
go. That's better. There you
Sorry.
go. Okay. Just by way of introduction, Heidi, there's a couple exhibits that we have here. One is the deed, and the property is owned by Ida.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
And you've been in touch with Stacy,
Yes.
the manager of Ida Enterprises. And I've attached as A3 the lease that you have signed with Ida.
I
Is that
did,
correct?
yes.
All right.
Yes.
And we also have as A4 the permission of Ida from Stacy to
Yes.
proceed with this. And I just would add, Stacy or her assistant Wiley would be here this evening, but they are at a conference in, I believe she said Hershey, that she would not be able to make it tonight. And so That's the only reason. But just, again, I believe that the exhibits themselves show that there is a lease, and she can testify to the lease, and we do have the consent from Ida incorporated also in the exhibits. I'm going to show you what's been marked as A5, and again, as we discussed, you're on the corner of North Wayne and Lancaster, correct?
Yes.
And it is a 3-story building.
Yes.
And remember, you're going to have to respond to everything. You have to
Oh,
respond.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
whenever I
Okay.
say, that's okay. And this is the building, A6 is the building that we're referencing here, correct?
Yes.
Step up.
Yes.
All right, and it's a 3-story building?
Yes.
Right, okay. And A7, again, just kind of shows it from North Wayne Avenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've handed up several other exhibits. We'll get to A8 in a minute, but A9 that you have before you, that's the existing tenant list for the premises. A10 is the third floor plan, and if I can just show you the third floor plan here in a minute, Heidi. Which office are you taking on that third floor that the board has in front of them? Which office? What
I think it's
office?
301.
And it is basically 2 rooms, is that right?
Yes. Yes.
.304?
304.
Is that it?
It's
Okay.
on the corner, actually.
No, I don't think it's 301.
Okay.
That's a lot more than what you're,
Okay.
I believe in the lease it says 304. But you're
Okay.
taking 350 square feet,
Yes,
correct?
2 rooms.
Okay, and if you look at, the board would look at A9 and you added up the offices on the third floor, you will see that it's a little over 2,000 square feet is what we're talking about as far as the square footage on the third floor. Now, what are you doing there? Tell me what your intent is.
It's called Scalp Micropigment. Yep, Scalp Micropigmentation. It's a cosmetic procedure.
And does it, does it like replicate hair
Yes, it
follicles?
replicates hair follicles by depositing ink into the scalp.
Okay, and when's it normally done?
When is it normally done?
What-
It's usually for people with alopecia, hormonal issues, thinning hair in general, PCOS.
So it imitates hair on the scalp?
Yes,
in
yes.
effect? And is it like frequently performed after a hair transplant or something of
Yes,
that nature?
I would, after a hair transplant, you would come to me and I would be the finisher.
And it would only be for,
I would be the finisher after a hair transplant. It's for density, thicker hair.
and it's just for the scalp?
Yes, only the scalp.
You're not doing eyebrows or
No,
anything of that nature?
no.
Okay. And can you describe, are you going to be the sole employee?
Yes,
All right.
yes.
Describe the typical process. What happens? How does a client contact you?
By email or phone, they would come in, I would give them a consult, and we would go over everything. Then we would schedule another appointment, and probably 2 to 4 sessions you would come in for maybe 2 to 3 hours.
Okay, is the initial consult also only by appointment?
Yes,
All right, and
yes.
do you have anyone generally waiting in the office
No,
while you're
no,
doing the
it's
procedure?
a private office, just one person at a time.
Okay. And after you meet with the initial consultation, do you then
Yes.
set up that they want to
Yes,
proceed another
yes, set up the
appointment?
appointment, yes.
And you had mentioned, how many sessions normally does it take? to do
2
it?
to 4 sessions.
And how long approximately is each session
Each client is different. I would say maybe 2 to 4 hours.
for each?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And is there any noise that emanates from the procedure or anything?
No, it's basically like a electric toothbrush. That's what it sounds like, a little quieter.
All right, did you receive any specialized training as a result?
Yes, I took classes. I have a license for the permanent makeup. It's permanent makeup. That's what it's under.
All right, so I have handed up to the board already A8, and this says certificate of completion.
Yes,
And what is, this says for permanent makeup?
yes, that's the basic.
And how long was that course?
That was a week long, 100 hours.
Okay. And then also, we have a completions of masters in coursework in scalp micropigmentation, and
Yes.
what did that involve?
That was online and then in person with a model, probably for about 8 months.
And so you actually performed the
Yes.
procedure with that?
Yes.
And I think we have some photographs
Yes.
that we can show. Okay.
Yes.
And then the other certificate of training that you have, is this one for
For
completing one-on-one
SMP,
training?
yes, yes. For SMP, scalp micropigmentation.
And what type of training was that?
It's the same thing, just a little bit more involved.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as A11, and in effect, it's 3 photographs, and the board has these in front of them. So
Okay.
if you can tell the board what they represent.
This is a man with thinning hair, no conditions, just basic thinning hair. And this probably took maybe 3 months to do.
So tell me, well, the
Yes.
left side is thinning hair?
Yeah, well, the left side is the before picture, and then the right side is after.
Okay, the second picture there?
The second picture is a female with thinning hair also with hormonal issues. So her hair, actually the pictures are backwards. So the picture on the right side is before, the left side is after. Her hair was thinning and I would deposit ink into the scalp to make it look like her hair's thicker and fuller, a little bit more density. And then the last picture is a female with alopecia. And the first picture up to the right, on the right side, is before. The second one is a second session. The third is also a second session. And the bottom right is a full session. She's finished at the bottom. So it basically fills in density to make it look a little bit thicker.
Can this procedure be performed in a beautician by?
No, it has to be performed in an office, like a sterile area. You can't have hair, wax, anything like that.
That's all I have at this time. Questions?
Any questions?
Yeah,
Go.
quick question. So I understand the procedure and I understand the industry.
Okay.
The noise of the vibration of
Yes,
the machine?
yes.
Would you say you can hear it through a door, a typical door of an office? Only because it sounds like you're explaining procedures would be going on for 4 hours at a time.
Yes. No, you can't hear it. It's a little quieter than the electric toothbrush, the one that you put on the charger in the bathroom. It's just a little quieter than that.
Okay,
It's
so,
this big.
so someone in the next office, you presume, would not be able to hear it?
No, definitely not. No, probably not even in the reception area, that, because the first room's reception, the second one is where I'm going to work at, so you wouldn't even hear it in there.
Okay, and this may sound like a strange question, but is this painful?
Well, my aunt, I did it to my aunt on 1 to 10. She said it too, and then she fell asleep. She's a nurse.
So you don't believe you would have clients, because it's not medical, so they're not patients, you don't believe you have clients who would make audible sounds if they were
Oh.
in pain, like a tattoo parlor might have
Oh,
sounds?
no, it is nothing like that. It only goes into the second layer of the skin, not all the way in like that. No, not at all.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? Public comment? Seeing none, we'll move your exhibits this time?
Yes, I would like to move the exhibit.
I even have a cheat sheet and I missed it the first time.
I apologize. What was this?
No, that's okay.
Rich,
Yeah.
sorry, I have one more question. Is there any, Nick, is there anything unique about this third floor? Is it unable to be rented? You know, is there a hardship like that where you
Yeah,
can't find a space to rent and it's been out there for years and years and
Yeah, I
years?
can't hold that out, that they can't rent it. I know that, I think we all know office space, renting office space has been difficult in today's market. I can't testify for Ida as to any difficulty necessarily that they had on renting this place. And I know, Brad, where you're, the reason for the question, yeah.
You know what, I do have one question for you then. So the one side is, it was 2 rooms, correct?
Yes, like when you walk
One
in
is
the-
like a reception,
Yes.
office area for yourself?
Yes.
Presumably, and then what's in the actual room where you perform this service? Is it a table?
It is, there's going to be a sink in there, a table, a chair. It's usually in a massage chair, like a sitting up massage chair.
And Nick, the other uses, it was in that Exhibit A.
Yeah, they were all, yeah, if you look at them, I believe there may have been
It
an
was
attorney.
A9.
Yeah, I believe there was one of them. No, I was on the second floor. It was an attorney. Third floor looked like underwriting, so probably insurance, I would guess. An SAT prep class, and there was an attorney there, and then psychiatric associates were there.
Okay, sorry. Since we've,
So Kevin, you would, in terms of the township's view of office use, you would view a psychiatric office differently than, I guess, an underwriter's office? 'Cause
No,
there's-
well,
Yeah, what's your interpretation?
no, for this particular use, I looked at this as personal service, as I would a tattoo parlor.
But you would put psychiatric use in an office use? Or did they never come in front of you?
I can't say that I've had that come in front of me.
If the township had an issue like that, what would you generally put them under?
Probably medical office.
So meaning they would need to get a variance if they were wanting to be in this level of the building?
For medical office, no.
No. Yeah, there's no differentiation.
No,
WBO did, yeah.
for use purposes, we do not differentiate between business office and medical office.
Got it. Okay.
For parking, we do, but that's not applicable in this case. When looking at this use, because we've had similar types of permanent makeup types of uses come in and ask, and I've always interpreted it as a personal service.
Hey, Nick, other question. Do you take insurance?
I don't, go ahead.
Will I have insurance on?
No.
Do we
You
take?
take insurance.
No, it's
So
a
the
cos-
patients would not submit Blue
No,
Cross or something
no,
like that?
this is a cosmetic procedure, so it is not covered under insurance. I'm guessing just like Botox and stuff like that, that's not covered under.
and Nick, I think you started with this, but there's no definition in the code of personal service versus.
Nor office,
Nor
yeah.
office.
There's no, the only thing I did run, I went into the Merriam, I can hand that up, it's the Merriam definition, and it's.
What are we up to? 812, 813?
It would be 812.
812, yeah.
And the one, I think actually I may have yellow lined it on one of them. And it says, a place where a particular kind of business is transacted or a service is supplied. I mean, certainly we're doing that, but I don't know, it's kind of a catch-all for almost everything you would think. I think it's a little bit different here, and I get where Kevin's coming from. But this is something that is commonly done in an office-type setting. It's not done in a retail-type setting. It's not a tattoo parlor. I don't think we have any danger of opening ourselves up to tattoo parlors being included as an office-type use if this is approved. This is something where she had extensive certifications, extensive certificates of completion, where she's a sole employee. She is interviewing the person, she is doing the procedure, and she's doing the procedure in an office-type setting. It's an office. It looks like an office. We have a reception area, and then you go into an area where the person sits in a chair and has a procedure done. Procedures are commonly done in medical offices, as we all know. So I don't think there's that much difference in what we're doing here, and I think we can easily distinguish this type of use from other type of uses that may be of some concern that they are a personal service shop.
Which would you prefer? A variance or grant by right? And what are you arguing more on behalf of?
Well,
However
I-
you grant it, Brad,
Okay.
you know, as far as.
Well, you know what, I ask you
know,
next question. What's your hardship? If you want a variance, what's your hardship?
Whatever you
He's
guys
trying to
wanna
lead
do.
you to water.
Yeah, I know he is. You know, I get it. One, can we say it's de minimis because it's only 350 square feet out of a 2,000 square foot third floor? I don't know if we can say that for a use type of situation. It certainly, as to Ms. Nagurski, it's a hardship because she's not going to be able to conduct this in any other place in the area as a result. And if you look throughout Wayne, I'm not aware of any retail on any second floor.
That's the other thing. I've been looking in Wayne for almost a year, and everything is over 700 square feet, and that's too big of a space for me. So that's kind of why I do like this building, and it's the perfect amount of square footage. It's very hard to find retail under 400.
And kind of to follow up on it, as I did mention, we all are aware that there is some sort of difficulty in renting office space. I know Kevin's aware of it because people come to him in Wayne, in the WBOD district, asking to put offices in, and Kevin has to respond, no, you can't put it on the first floor of buildings. And it happens frequently. So, there is some hardship in trying to lease office space in the WBOD now. And, certainly we can tell it by experience, or I can, as Kevin nodded his head there, that many people do come to him and ask for office space in Wayne, and he can't give them the permission to do it because of the code.
But isn't that more a hardship to the property owner as opposed to a prospective tenant? I mean, I understand the result is the same, but.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
Again, if, obviously, there's no one here objecting. One, there's no detriment to the neighborhood at all involved in this, whether it's a variance or granted by right. And I still believe, even if it was granted by right, we're not establishing any kind of precedent at all as to, by permitting this as an office-type setting.
No, I've got my finger on the trigger to make a motion.
Yeah, well, actually, since you ended up another Exhibit A12.
Yes.
We'll add that to the record,
Yeah,
correct?
thank you, please. If we
Without
could,
objection.
introduce
Okay.
that as well.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we grant the applicant the variance requested from Section 280-5310A2 of the code in accordance with the evidence and testimony presented this evening.
Second?
And before you move on, Mr. Chairman, I realize there's no one, I believe the next person is here for an application, but just to open and close public comment, that's all, for the record.
Oh, I thought I did.
I'm sorry if you did.
Yeah, I think I
My
did. I
apologies.
had asked for public comment, but yeah.
He's going to stand up and say he loves it, right? Good idea. We may all need it.
Even though you don't need it.
Moved and seconded.
Yeah. Any discussion?
I'm probably more on the side that it's a grant by right. This feels more like an office use than anything else. Granted, I don't think anyone's going to go after for grant variance, but my preference would be to grant by right. Even though I didn't realize I was on. Even though I realize that we're not setting a precedent, I think it helps to say, if you come in front of us and you give us a use that is similar to an office, although may not fit perfectly in that box, that's how you should get it, not necessarily worry about hardship, because that's really what I'm worried about. I don't think a hardship, it's not much real estate in the space in WBOD. That to me doesn't, anyone can have that hardship. So that's me.
I'll just say that there's such low traffic in this case, and probably less traffic than other offices, particularly on the floor, and less people coming in and out. And I agree with Brad, I feel like it's by right.
Yeah, that was my thought as well, that it feels like an office in hearing the way it's been described, but based on the motion.
So vote against the motion and propose another one.
Okay, all right, so let's take a vote then. Brad?
Against.
John?
In favor.
Jamie?
Again,
I'll vote against as well, so that's been denied the variance, and,
I'd like to make another motion.
sure.
I'd like to grant the relief by right.
And do we need to be more specific than that? No? Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Brad, any board discussion?
Just very briefly, I mean, I hear what we're saying, or what's been said. It is a cosmetic procedure, and those, just in my mind, tend to fall to, if there were a definition of personal service use, this is something that would fall under it. I don't think it's medical. I don't think it's pure office. So I'm not going to object to the motion, but I did want to share the thinking with respect to why I was struggling with the buy rate.
Okay, take a vote, Brad?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Aye, so pass. Good luck.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Thank you.
Okay, so Appeal 3133, the applicant Robert and Rose, I know I'm going to say this wrong, is it Leisk or Leisk? Leisk. Property located at 232 Atlee Road and zoned AC Agricultural Conservation District. Applicant seeks a variance from Section 280-10B3 of the code to construct an addition that will encroach into the front yard setback or such other relief required under the zoning code consistent with the exhibits and testimony presented.
Thank you. Swear in, Robert.
Do solemnly swear or affirm this is the truth, and state your full name, please,
Robert Anthony Lease.
and how do you spell that?
Robert is R-O-B,
No,
oh, Lease, sorry, L-E-I-S-K. Thank you.
This is on Atlee Road, and actually my favorite road in the township. I told Robert this. Us down at West Wayne, we're more familiar.
Would you like
with
us to
the-
take judicial notice of that now?
Yeah, it's a great road, it really, I mean, if you go down, some of us, well, if you go down West Wayne Avenue before you make the turn for Wayne Elementary, it is Atlee Road, and it kind of winds around to the mill dam, and it's just, very heavily vegetated and great road to walk on, ride bikes, whatever.
I've been there 16 years. I love it.
Yeah. So, Robert, as you mentioned, I'm going to show you first is the deed to the property, and it's marked as A2. And that's, you purchased it in 2004?
Yes, that's correct.
You and your wife, correct?
Yes.
All right. And just again, did an aerial here, and we're showing A3. And the significance of this aerial is heavily treed, heavily vegetated, basically isolated.
Yes,
Okay.
correct. Yep.
And we see 232 Atlee, and as we mentioned, as you come down from West Wayne Avenue, you have this portion of Atlee, and then it kind of branches off, to here, which goes out to the mill dam, to Maplewood Avenue, and then the other way. I think it dead ends this way.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yep. We get a lot of walkers walking by the house.
Right. And again, on what we're showing here and what you're proposing, tell the board what you're asking for here.
Okay, the house is, from my understanding, the house was built in like 1940, 1950, and it's a great house, but all the rooms are really awkward sizes. And our master bedroom, which is at one end of the house, is probably one of the average size bedroom. It's not like a classic master. It's got a small bathroom and one small closet. And we've struggled for years thinking about how we could make this more usable. And my wife's got a certain condition now, which I don't need to talk about, but it would be really helpful if we could build this little extension. It's like 6 feet by 8 feet. And we're going to use it for two things primarily. Number one, my wife's clothes and shoes, and you know women are like with shoes, and also some medical equipment we'd like to keep in that area as well.
And that's medical equipment for
For my wife, yeah.
And actually, the other storage areas are on the second floor?
Yes, all the other bedrooms and all the other storage areas are on the second floor.
And so there's a reason why the master bedroom is on the first floor and you're using it on
Yes,
the
for my wife, yeah. And it's also, in all honesty, it's the best room because we have windows out the back that look out as well. So, you know, it is because it's a great location as well.
But, all right, looking at the site plan here, it shows that the existing building is 39 feet, almost 40 feet from the right-of-way.
Yes, correct.
All right, the one Atlee right-of-way.
Yes.
And this line across here basically is the nonconformity sign. All the area to the inside of that, basically, we're not increasing the nonconformity, is that right?
I believe that's correct, yeah.
And then outside of it, is the additional nonconformity.
Yep, I had an architect and also a civil engineer look at this for me.
Okay, and the 34 and a half feet, that's the closest point for the addition, correct?
Yes.
All right, and it says here, as you look on the notes on A5, that the addition size is 8 feet by 7.5 feet?
That's at a maximum. It might be smaller than that, but that's the maximum.
And that the additional square footage that we're talking about for the whole addition, 60 square feet?
Yes, correct.
And the additional square footage outside the existing nonconformity is 30 square feet, is that right?
That's correct.
And as it mentions on the plan here, the distance from the right-of-way is 34 and a half feet, correct?
Correct, yes.
And you're well under the impervious coverage requirement for the zoning district, and you're well under the building coverage for the zoning district.
Yes, and the other thing from a visibility standpoint, as you can see here, we have a fence down this side of the property with some nice pear trees. You're also you can't see it, but here there is a line of laurel hedges. So this thing is really not visible by anybody except us. It's really well hidden, and I don't think it really hurts anybody if we just put that little, and we'll do it very tasteful. My wife's a landscape architect, so we're going to put some dogwood trees either side, so it will look very nice.
Yep, Robert, I'm going to show you A6. I don't think I marked this as an exhibit, but is this the fence we were talking about?
Yes, it's exactly it. So if you were standing here on Atlee Road,
Let's just show us the
and looking that's what you would see. That's the fence I was talking about. These are the pear trees. This is the laurel hedge that goes parallel to the road. And the small addition will be inside that area there, so no one would even see it.
So I'll just hear that. I'm showing you what's been marked as A4. And can you just tell what A4 represents as we're looking at it?
Yes, so this is the back of the house. This is the room I'm talking about, the master bedroom. And the little addition here, which as you say is 6 by 7 feet or 8 feet by 7 feet, would go between those two windows, and we would create a door opening here and create this extra space, as I said, for equipment and for clothing, etc., predominantly for my wife. I keep my stuff upstairs to give her more room.
And as I mentioned, we had A5, and that's the site plan prepared by Momini, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And as I mentioned, you're complying with all zoning requirements?
Yes.
And have you spoken to your neighbors regarding this?
Yes, I know my neighbors very well.
And have you spoken to them about the addition?
Yeah, they showed me the thing that came in the mail. They know exactly what I'm doing. We have glasses of wine together. We're all good friends, so they have no problem whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. So I have just request the exhibits be made part of the record, please.
Without objection. Any public comment? Seeing, did I allow enough time to pass? No public comment. I forgot to ask any board questions. No. Is there a motion?
Yeah. We'll make a motion to approve a variance from Section 280-10B3 of the code to construct an addition that encroaches on the front yard setback based on the exhibits and testimony this evening.
Second.
Any discussion? No? Okay, just a vote then. Jamie?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
I'm also in favor. Passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes the agenda, and we are back here in May, and we'll see you then.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody.